Stupid People According to C.G. Jung, Psychological Analysis of Human Foolishness. This comprehensive analysis explores Carl Gustav Jung's profound insights into human stupidity, revealing it not as mere intellectual deficiency, but as a complex psychological phenomenon rooted in unconscious patterns and collective behavior. Jung's framework demonstrates that foolishness emerges from the refusal to engage in self-reflection and the persistent adherence to unconscious behavioral patterns, offering a pathway to wisdom through the challenging process of individuation and shadow integration. Jung's fundamental understanding of human stupidity. Carl Gustav Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, comprehensively analyzed the phenomenon of human stupidity in his work, understanding it not as mere intellectual deficiency, but as a deeply rooted psychological mechanism influencing both collective and individual behavior. Jung's famous statement, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate," reveals the core of the problem. Stupidity arises from the rejection of self-reflection and persistence in unconscious patterns. Jung emphasized that stupidity is not a matter of low IQ, but psychological stagnation, where an individual remains trapped in primitive reactions and collective prejudices. This concept of collective stupidity represents, according to Jung, a dangerous social phenomenon, as simplified thoughts spread faster due to their emotional appeal and absence of critical thinking. Jung warned that every person has a tendency towards stupidity if they cannot integrate their shadow aspects, the dark repressed parts of personality that influence behavior without conscious control. The shadow represents those elements of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge, yet which continue to exert powerful influence over our actions and decisions. The mechanism of projection and fanaticism. A key element of Jung's conception of stupidity is the concept of projection, where an individual attributes their own negative qualities to others instead of reflecting on them. This mechanism prevents personal growth and maintains the illusion of moral superiority. For example, fanaticism, which Jung described as a symptom of repressed doubt, is a typical manifestation of an unintegrated shadow. According to him, a stupid person often holds extreme views to cover their own uncertainty, thereby closing themselves into a vicious cycle of self-deception. The Dunning-Kruger effect plays an important role where people with low competence overestimate their abilities, while experts tend to underestimate theirs. Jung connected this to the narcissistic ego, which prevents realistic self-assessment and creates an illusion of omniscience. This psychological dynamic creates a particularly dangerous form of ignorance, where the least qualified individuals possess the greatest confidence in their opinions, while those with genuine expertise remain humble about the limits of their knowledge. The process of individuation as defense against stupidity. The process of individuation, the path to self-knowledge and integration of unconscious contents, is, according to Jung, the only effective defense against stupidity. This process requires courage to confront one's own shadow, accept responsibility for one's mistakes, and abandon black and white perception of the world. Jung warned that without this inner work, a person remains a slave to archetypal patterns, such as the need for dominance, fear of difference, or desire for immediate gratification. In the Red Book, he wrote, "The extraordinary extent of stupidity inherent in all people was overlooked and denied. It is what separates and isolates the mixed seeds of life." Through this, he emphasized the universality of this phenomenon and the necessity of overcoming it through conscious effort. The individuation process represents a lifelong journey of self-discovery, requiring continuous engagement with unconscious material and the integration of previously rejected aspects of the psyche. Warning signs of stupidity: inability to accept ignorance. The first warning sign of stupidity, according to Jung, is the inability to accept one's own ignorance. A stupid person lives in the illusion of complete understanding of the world, refuses new information and criticism, which leads to mental rigidity. This attitude is related to an overly developed ego that protects fragile self-esteem from reality. Jung described how such an individual projects their mistakes onto others, for example, in personal relationships, blaming a partner for conflicts without reflecting on their own role. The second sign is emotional reactivity without self-reflection. Stupid people react impulsively, often aggressively, when their beliefs are questioned, reflecting an inadequately developed capacity for self-regulation. Jung connected this to the dominance of the persona, the social mask that suppresses authentic emotions and creates a false image of oneself. This emotional reactivity serves as a defense mechanism, protecting the individual from having to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves or their beliefs. Patterns of avoidance and black and white thinking. The third characteristic trait is avoiding responsibility. Jung noted that stupid individuals often stylize themselves as victims, which allows them to avoid confrontation with their own shortcomings. In the workplace, such a person blames colleagues for failures instead of analyzing their mistakes. This victim mentality becomes a convenient way to maintain self-esteem while avoiding the difficult work of genuine self-improvement. The fourth sign is black and white thinking, which ignores nuances and the complexity of reality. According to Jung, this is related to the hero archetype, which divides the world into good and evil, thereby losing the capacity for empathy and critical analysis. This simplistic worldview provides psychological comfort by reducing complex situations into manageable categories, but it severely limits the individual's ability to understand and navigate the true complexity of human experience. The illusion of superiority and its consequences. The fifth manifestation is the illusion of superiority, which Friedrich Nietzsche had already described and which closely relates to the Dunning-Kruger effect. A stupid person overestimates their knowledge, especially in areas where they have minimal competence, while experts doubt even verified facts. This creates a paradoxical situation where ignorance breeds confidence while knowledge generates humility. Jung warned that these signs are not isolated, but mutually reinforcing. For example, black and white thinking provides a false sense of certainty that prevents recognition of one's own ignorance. At the same time, he emphasized that stupidity is not a permanent state, but a choice, a refusal to grow despite life's lessons. In his lectures, he warned, "The greatest danger to humanity is not evil, but passive acceptance of stupidity as the norm." These words gain relevance in the era of misinformation, where social media enables mass spreading of simplified truths without context. The unconscious roots of foolish behavior. Jung saw the deepest root of stupidity in the rejection of the unconscious. In the shadow, as he called the repressed parts of the psyche, emotions, traumas, and instincts accumulate, influencing decision-making without conscious control. According to Jung, a stupid person lives in the illusion of rational control while their actions are directed by unintegrated complexes. A typical example is the repetition of destructive patterns, such as toxic relationships or financial irresponsibility, which Jung called unconscious repetitive compulsion. The process of individuation, which brings these contents into consciousness, is painful but necessary for achieving wisdom. This work requires sustained effort and often professional guidance, as the unconscious material can be overwhelming when first encountered. Jung emphasized that avoiding this inner work condemns individuals to repeat the same mistakes indefinitely, trapped in cycles of behavior they cannot understand or control. Collective unconscious and the spread of stupidity. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious explains why stupidity spreads through society like an epidemic. Archetypes such as the leader or victim influence mass behavior and lead to the acceptance of irrational ideologies. According to Jung, a historical example is Nazism, where the collective shadow of Germans found expression in Hitler's propaganda. In modern times, this mechanism manifests in societal polarization and rejection of scientific facts in favor of conspiracies. The collective dimension of stupidity makes it particularly dangerous, as it can override individual critical thinking and create mass movements based on primitive psychological appeals rather than rational discourse. Social media and modern communication technologies have amplified this effect, allowing archetypal patterns to spread rapidly across large populations without the mediating influence of reflection or critical analysis. Conclusion: the path to wisdom through listening and transformation. A crucial role in overcoming stupidity is played by the ability to listen. Jung emphasized that a wise person does not seek victory in discussions, but understanding. This requires humility and willingness to revise one's own opinions, qualities that stupid people lack. At the conclusion of his book, Man and His Symbols, he wrote, "The path to true knowledge does not lead through accumulating information, but through transformation of consciousness." This transformation includes accepting one's own imperfection and continuous work on integrating the shadow, without which we remain prisoners of collective stupidity. Jung's insights remain profoundly relevant in our contemporary world, where the challenges of misinformation, polarization, and collective irrationality continue to threaten human progress. The path he outlined, through individuation, shadow work, and conscious engagement with the unconscious, offers a rigorous but ultimately hopeful approach to transcending the limitations of human foolishness and moving toward genuine wisdom and understanding.